what time it is? It's time to get in the game with your host, Cynthia J.
Good Tuesday evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here once again on your favorite sports show, Get in the Game, with your favorite sports show host, Tara J. And that is I. And joining me to the right are the Marts men. First of all, the male matriarch of this family. You guys have seen him before. He was on the show here back in February with his lovely wife, Gian. Hi, Gian. Hi, Jalon. And all the other Marts family members. Mr. Lonnie Marts Jr. sitting to his immediate right is his middle son, Gavin Marts, and to his immediate right is Lonnie Marts III, the one who has the namesake. Let me just ask you this quick question, because so many times we hear third. I went to school with a guy that was the sixth.
Yeah.
Will you carry it on?
I kind of have to. You know, I've thought about messing around, just being like, his name's Bob or something like that. But no, I'm going to keep it going.
Cool. And what about you, Gavin? You got Gavin.
It just sounded like an insult. It's like you just
got Gavin. No, definitely not an insult.
I mean, yeah, I think I should just, carry it on.
Gavin Jr.?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you should do it. It sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, so listen, we're here to talk about fatherhood, obviously, with your dad being here, how he has influenced you and your careers, especially your sports career, because you both have an extensive sports background. But let's kind of start with something that is obviously plaguing this nation right now. We were talking about it before the show started, and that is what some people are saying is the real epidemic, and that is the country fighting against this systemic racism. And obviously, with all three of you on the set being African American males and the two of you being in your early 20s, I'll start with you, Lonnie III. With everything that's going on, and you're a social media influencer, so I'm sure you see a lot, and you've been able to use your platform to speak on these things. As a young male, 24 years old, in his prime, when you see what's going on in this nation, what goes on the inside of you?
Oh, man. I think I have somewhat of an atypical African-American experience. I feel like I kind of grew up in, I guess, white world, if you will, to an extent. A lot of my good friends and family are white, and that's just kind of where I spent a lot of my time growing up. I've had people say, oh, you're one of the whitest black kids I know, and I hear that, and I'm just like, I assume
that
you mean
even
well.
mean, right?
What does that mean? I'm like, I assume you mean well, you know? But that's a whole thing you got to unbox with people, you know? And being black and then being in so many different white spaces, it has given me an odd perspective and an odd kind of honestly weight that I feel like I have, because I'm like, I got my friends over here, I got my friends and family over here. Like, I'm hearing almost like both sides. Like, I have a friend who's had a conversation with the police chief, and I got to hear kind of some of that side of the perspective, the narrative, and the story that's going on. And it was very different from the things I get to hear at home, you know? So it's just like trying to balance that. And then everybody online expects you to speak out and say something, and people are looking for your voice. So it's like, I got to speak up, but I also feel real fortunate to have my dad and my mom, who are always like teaching me, like, wherever you go, you're going to be a leader. So you're going to have to know how to navigate that. Yeah. And now I'm just seeing, like, it's not just one group of people you get to lead. It's like multiple voices you have to hear and then figure out how to speak to.
That's awesome. You said it great. And Gavin, you were shaking your head, yes. And obviously your experience right now is different because you're playing football. Currently, obviously, you're out right now, but you're playing at Navy up in Annapolis. And right now we're seeing a lot of our professional athletes, specifically football players, talk about how football brings people together. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like football can cover up what's going on right now?
Personally, I feel like the way that people want football to come back, they want it to come back in a way that it allows them to ignore what's going on right now. And that's not what needs to happen. If that just gets ignored, then it's just going to come back up in a different way, and then the same cycle is going to get perpetuated. So I feel like if football comes back, there still needs to be that same pressure to solve the issue instead of just allowing people to just bond over watching a football game and then ignoring the rest of the problems that are occurring right now. So,
have you thought about how you might be able to deal with that?
I I mean, I obviously don't have all the answers, but I do feel like the players have the ability, just on the professional level, let alone college level too. They just have the power to, if they look at it in the right way and execute it and go about it in a way that requires the attention, just like everything Colin Kaepernick was doing. Everything he was doing is still applicable now. But whenever it was happening, it was wrong. It was disrespectful. It was like, oh, go do that somewhere else. People just wanted him to get out of their face with the issue.
Play football and shut up.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
and we'll come back to that later because it's bringing up some things I definitely want to ask you. Mr. Marts, at what point, because we know that every African-American father should and has the weight of having that conversation. You know, growing up, you hear the conversation about the birds and the bees, and you have that, but as the African-American male raising African-American men and women, because we don't want to forget about the fact that, man, let's not even go into that.
No.
Because that's a whole different fight that women have to fight. But as a father, when did you begin having that conversation with them, and how did that go?
Well, I think with Gian and I, it started early on because as they say, we were in white spaces. And by being in white spaces, they could go outside and play, but then you had to say, hey, be careful about at nighttime running between the houses or playing hide and seek in different areas, because if not, you could get caught up, or maybe there could be something where the security is called because someone saw you running through the neighborhood. So it started at an early point, but as of late, it's been, hey, don't stay out too late. Let's be home on time. Drive, well-lit areas. Don't mess around at all, because what may be funny to you is not always considered funny, and it may just lead to something else later on. Therefore, whenever you're stopped, or if you're stopped, keep everything in plain sight and make sure that you are, at least you have video or something on so that people can understand what's actually happening. Not that it saves you, because we can see that it doesn't always happen, but the fact that we can tell from our side what's going on, and you will know as well, and maybe that can be a deterrent. So that's something that you have to talk about all the time. That's every black father, every black mother. Hey, when you're out, here's the rules of engagement.
And I want to say this specifically because I know you don't have a fear with your sons, because you're a man of God, and so I know you don't deal with fear. But do you ever have a concern, especially in the height of everything that's going on now, with him going back up to school, Lonnie the third, training for the Olympics next year? Has this thing kind of brought up a level of concern that maybe wasn't there before?
Slightly. As you said, I'm going to pray over my family, every day. Psalms 91, and that's all that's needed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yes, I'm wondering. Like I think he went fishing the other night, and there happened to be some guys. We went to the fishing spot 2 days before. There were some guys had the rebel flag up, and I'm like, hey, maybe this is not the right place to be going fishing. But if they're there, you keep to yourself. You do what you do. I'm not with you, so I got to expect that he understands how to behave himself, as well as L. He understands how to behave himself. And so when we're in different spaces, it's like, hey, I noticed that. You need to notice that. Pay attention to it. Don't be so much by yourself as, I'm watching and I can navigate. And so, yes, I have a little bit more awareness of they are out and about, but I can't be scared and fearful for them. I got to let them have it.
Right. Guys, let me ask you this quick question before we move on, because I've never been a male, never will be a male, but, in my own right have had experiences. Do you feel restricted at all? Do you ever have moments where you're like, man, this is not fair that I have to live so safe? Do you ever feel that way?
You want to go first?
you got it.
Whenever I was younger, like my dad was saying, like there were those times when I'm sitting here like running around the neighborhood with my friends and stuff like that. My mom is like, you cannot go play ding dong ditch in this neighborhood, hiding people in the back of people's bushes and behind their house at like 8 p.m. at night and stuff like that. And I'm like, why not? Like, Brett gets to go.
Fun.
Yeah, like Brett gets to go do it. Like, why can't I? You know? And then I had the realization like, oh, yeah, people respond differently. You know, people will respond differently. And so I had to kind of think, at first I'm like, well, that's just not fair, you know? And I think as I've grown up, I've always been that person who likes to go do crazy stuff. Like, I like to go, like, I had to convince my family to go to the Springs one time, Itchituckney Springs. I'm the one who's, like, kind of outdoors trying that kind of stuff, and they're like, no. And usually for good reason, because the time I made them go, there was a snake and everything involved. But I just said that to say, like, I'm somebody who does like to have my freedoms, you know, in kind of any space I'm in. So, like, it just means that, like, I have to kind of think a little bit extra, think a little bit more about how I navigate in these spaces and things like that, you know? So I think there are times where I'm like, oh, man, I wish I could just not have to think about all this. But at the same time, this is the world in which we live in, you know? So you kind of just, you figure it out, you know?
What about you, Gavin?
Well, I think it's unfair. Just that I have to cater my culture or personality to fit somebody else's narrative to appear professional or appear worthy of conversation.
Wow.
Like, I was talking to my mom earlier, I was like, if I was just to walk up to some random person, my opinion doesn't hold as much weight as it would as if I was like, oh yeah, I go to the Naval Academy, like I'm a football player at the Naval Academy. And it's like, I got a platform because of where I'm at in life, but it's not necessarily because of like my values or my opinions, it's because of like where I stand. And I think that's unfair, and I do think that there's just a lot to like how to live that I just don't see eye to eye with, just because like I have to change the way I do things to fit somebody else's narrative. And it's like there's just a lot of restrictions that you have.
Hearing your middle son say that.
I've heard him past couple of days. He does not like it, and for me, it's the platform that we have is a great platform, but I've kind of catered to it this whole time myself. Just knowing that, hey, in the NFL, you're literally, your life is an open book, and so now he's starting to experience it, and Elle experienced it. Your life is an open book, whether it be because you're my sons or it be you're making your own way. And these are things that you have to deal with. And as Elle said, it's a part of life, it's the life that we live in, and it's really up to us to make it better than what we see or what someone else sees. So I get the fact that he doesn't like it. At the same time, I'm like, use it to better, because you have to learn how to navigate. And I think he's doing a great job. He just doesn't like having to.
Help someone who's watching that may, because I kind of understand, Gavin. We have that middle child thing going on. We don't necessarily want to follow the rules, or we feel like we can make our own rules. But how do you parent that without him getting frustrated and without you feeling frustrated?
Didn't we get into it the other day? we got into it the other day because I had one perspective and he had the other, and we were like, you know what, this doesn't work. You need to do it this way. And I'm never going to tell him to change. What I'm gonna say is, kind of round the corners, soften the edges a little bit, but keep going what you're going. And then, I learned from him. I learned from Elle, and I say, hey, you know what? You're right. That is not fair. But to get to a point where we can be fair, we may have to round those edges. We may have to soften the corners and start making sure that we're like his mom would always say, let's get a seat at the table. And in his mind, he's like, even the seat at the table doesn't help. And we can agree. But then if we didn't try it that way at first, we're not going to get, before we go all out and burn everything down.
Right.
let's get at the table and see if we can talk and move people to where they need to be. And so I understand what he's saying, but I'm like, soften those edges so that you can get at the table, and when you get at the table, then maybe you can hammer. But let's get to that table first.
Yeah, and guys, that's probably a lot coming from your dad, because he's had so much success, especially in the NFL and in sports. Did you ever feel pressured following in his footsteps? Because it's like, I mean, it's kind of like when your dad has had that much success playing football, everyone's looking at you like, okay, what are you going to do now, kid? Lonnie, you go, because you're first.
I think my dad, he's done a great job of just like making sure that we don't feel the unnecessary pressure, you know? Like, it was always like, yo, if you're gonna go do football, that's great, that's fantastic. But when I made the decision to go do track and field in college, because I'm like, I think I wanna have a little bit more time to do like whatever I found I wanna do. Like, if I wanna join this club and organization in college, I want the time to be able to do that. With football, you're on a pretty strict schedule, you know? He was super supportive of that. And so I haven't ever felt the pressure to go do like football necessarily per se, exactly like he did. I think there's been a pressure as well as encouragement to be the best at whatever I go do, but never like this bearing down pressure to do like, you have to do exactly what I did the way you do it. Because, you know, you'll feel like you're like, oh, you're going to play football just like your dad, you know? Mm-hmm. And I'd hear that from outside spaces, but never so much from him. And that helped me to feel like it's not the end of the world if I don't do that and I want to go like do social media, you know?
Right.
So.
What about you, Gavin? Because you're right in the thick of it right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. I've felt basically the same thing that Elle said. There's never been that pressure to go down the road that he went down. A lot of you see a lot of people, they like to live through their kids and like force their kids to do something. And I see that and I'm just like, it's just upsetting because you're forcing your child to do something and you don't even know if they really want to do it or not. And then you keep pressing them and then they lose their passion for what they're doing. And I've never felt that with him. It's always been like, you're going to be as good as you want to be. Like, I have the tools and resources. Like, you come to me and ask for help and I can help you. So like, yeah, I'm in like that second stage of what he was doing. But like, there's also, because whenever I got changed to linebacker from running back this past year. And so I was like, okay, I'm getting moved over. I'm playing the same position as my dad. I was like, maybe I should wear his number or something. And then I was like, I told him. He was like, no, like you should probably use your own. Like, you're on your own road. Like, so yeah, there's never been that, you know, follow in my footsteps, be better than me or be exactly like me. That's never been anything that we've experienced from him at all.
And does that make it easy to just be who you are, even though you carry this last name that, I mean, everybody knows?
Yeah. I think it does. It makes it like extremely easy to just be whoever we're gonna be, and like I said, to be the best at that. You know, because like we share the similarities, but we're not the same people, and that's really freeing to hear. Like my dad said, like, what are you gonna do? Oh, you're trying out the social media thing? How's it going? Checking in all the time. It's like, okay, cool. He cares, and he's not saying like, you know, don't you want to go try out somewhere or whatever, you know? Like, it makes it easy to just be, especially in the house and therefore outside of the house, just whatever, you know?
When you retired from the NFL, and I think at the time you just had the three oldest, right? So did you ever feel like you had to kind of pull back in parenting them in a way that didn't kind of, I don't want to say suffocate, but kind of lord over them the fact that this is who I was and this is who you need to be and carry this same type of discipline in whatever you do?
No, I didn't. I would say this, that when I retired and I came back into the house, they were on their own schedules. So mom had them on their schedule. So when I showed up, I was the disciplinarian. And when I came in, they were like, hey, mom, you need to get him. He's trying to make us do stuff and tell us what to do. We on the system already. He need to get involved with the program. And so that stopped me from coming in and trying to pressure them or doing anything. And it was well deserved because, yeah, I was, you know, NFL, it's all about perfection. Never make the same mistake twice. And so you have to make sure that when you go in, you're always perfection. Do this, do that. And when I came home, I tried it. I tried a couple times with them, and it was like, hold up, these are kids. Right. These are not grown men. You're not in the NFL. Tone it down a little bit. And so from that perspective, yes, but then no, because I never pressured them. They never saw it. It was usually those bedroom conversations with me and Gian. You know, stop. You know, don't. That's not going to work here. And so from that point, I got a chance to back it up behind the scenes, and they never saw it.
So let's talk about you guys' experience, because you've been laughing. So the kids always have a different perspective. So Dad retires, he's home full time. Gavin, what's like the first thing you notice?
Well, whenever he retired, I was pretty young, so there wasn't like much memory of him not being there or him. It's mostly been him being there.
Gotcha.
So there's not really much of a difference in my mind. So
he retired in
2001.
Yeah.
2001.
So I
You're
was like
99, so
Yeah,
he was like
Okay.
he was little.
Yeah.
What about you, Lonnie?
I think I was like 6 or 7 at the time. So in my mind, the little things I remember, I don't remember too much of like a big shift from like you being like at work or at practice all the time and then coming home. But I do remember those times of like, there were a few moments where it's like, well, that was intense, you know, I did something dumb, and it's like, that's new, you know, you get a spanking or a whooping or something like that. It's like, wow, mom doesn't hit like that, you know, or whatever the case is.
He had been saving that.
You know, like, you know, you get your act together real quick, but then at the same time, it's like, it was never ever like super disciplinarian type of a thing, you know. It was never like, to me, it never felt like this super intense pressure. Like, you got to do it this way, you got to do it this way. Like, it's always been a lot of grace and a lot of space to like figure things out, and like, but that like you have a certain way of like coming at things, but at the same time, you have this way of also being like, all right, maybe that wasn't the best. And I know there's a lot of times when you came and apologized to us. When there was one specific story where me and my cousin were hanging out, and we did something dumb at a mall where we were all out. And my daddy's like, hey, y'all getting spankings when you get home? Like, we were like maybe 7 or 8. And we're like, oh no, not a whooping, you know? And so we got home, and then we like went into the room. He's like, yeah, go get ready, because I'm going in there, y'all getting beat, you know? And so we ran to the room, and we took socks, and we stuffed socks in our pants, as if he wouldn't notice that all of a sudden we had socks stuffed in our pants. Whenever we did get the whooping, it didn't hurt so bad. And I remember I think we thought you didn't notice, but then afterwards we were all laughing about it, because obviously he could tell that like we were laughing instead of crying. But moments like that are the moments that I remember more than like any time he was like bearing down on us, being like, hey, you gotta do it this way, you gotta do it this way. Times like that where he's like, okay, maybe I was a little harsh, this whole situation's kind of crazy, kind of dumb, like y'all are kids, you know? So those are the things I remember and appreciate most, you know?
And obviously, you guys aren't kids per se anymore. So as you became an adult, what are those lessons and moments of teaching that you've taken from your dad? Gavin?
The effectiveness of a belt. It'll change you real quick.
Yeah.
Change your whole tune.
It'll change you really quick. But also just like being able to be supportive and not overbearing. Like in correction, being able to correct and not necessarily just criticize. Like, it's not just always telling you you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. It's you're wrong, here's where you went wrong, and here's how you fix it. So like for me anyways, being able to like get a course of action to follow up afterwards is really helpful. And like just the way my mind works, like it's helpful for me. And then it's helpful for me to know that even in like discipline, like you support, like you don't hate me, and that's why you're disciplining me. It's because you love and support me, so that's why you're disciplining me.
And that, I'll come back to you, Lonnie. And that, you had to shift parenting at some point, because you see, and I've heard, you know, that most of the time after athletes retire, coming back in the home is so difficult, especially football players, because you're used to knocking guys' heads off, and you did that for 11 years or so. So, what kind of shifting had to take place with you?
I mean, to be honest with you, it was listening to my wife. My wife was basically engineer of the household, and when I got back in, I didn't want to at all times, but I took her advice, and I said, you know, she's done a great job. My kids are growing, and they're able to, you know, resolve conflict. They're able to think on their own. They're analytical. They can figure things out. They're not like just, and Gavin and Elle are the main ones. They're like, I can think through this. And what I was taught to do, NFL and in most sports, do what I say do. Do it like this, boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, that's stifling them.
Wow.
And so when I came in, it was like, how do I not stifle them, but let them grow and assist them? And so assisting them, and it's been tough because like Gavin was saying, I had to go back to him. Man, I am so sorry. I am so sorry I did that. Please forgive me. And a lot of kids don't hear that from their parents. And so it does work. And talking to them and sitting down with them and saying, I really wanted to spank your behind. I wanted to tear you up. But that was the way I was raised. And my mother went on what she knew. What I'm going to do is improve it a little bit more, and hopefully they will improve it so that when I'm sitting down in their presence with with my grandkids, I'm not looking at them hit my grandkids or be at my grandkids and going, I got to step in. Stop, don't do that. Where'd you learn that? I learned it from you. Okay. So at that point, if I don't want that to happen, I got to change it now. And so, as we said, the narrative changes because I'm looking for, or I'm looking to reap this type of lifestyle in their lives from them, for them, so that when we're down the road, they know, well, my dad did what he knew. That was what he knew. And he's now a little bit better than what he was then, and so I should be doing the same thing.
What are some of the tools you've learned?
One of the biggest ones I remember, we were maybe on a road trip or just heading home. All the kids sit in the car. My dad stops at a gas station, pumps some gas, and this homeless guy either comes up or he's just over off to the side of the gas station or something like that. And I'm sitting in the back seat looking out the window, and I see my dad go and give him like $20 or something like that. And that is something even today, I don't know, might have been 7, 8, 5, I don't know, but I remember that to this day. And the generosity, which is something I don't think we've really touched on here yet, but the generosity that I've seen from him and how he handled his life while he was playing, after he was playing, is something that has stuck with me and ingrained in me the importance of, like he mentioned it, like reaping and sowing, like sow the generosity, always be sowing, always be thinking of how you can give to people and sow something that you might not see here in, like today, whether that's in money, your time, whatever, or energy. Like, be generous with it, and give to places that aren't going to necessarily immediately give back to you. And that's something big I've taken away.
And so now that we're on this path, because, our viewers don't know this, but we all attend church together. And so when you talk about sowing and reaping and what we're learning in our ministry, one thing that I believe is just exceptional with the Marts household is everyone's at church together. But you guys are grown. So you could technically do your own thing. But why is it easy to just flow with the family? What about being at church together is something that you desire to do, even at a point where I'm sure you could choose to be a part of another ministry if you wanted to be?
Yeah. I think for me personally, it hasn't been every Sunday that I'm there, but I know one of the things that makes it easy to be there sitting with my family in church is like, I know that they're not just there for show, but everybody who's there is there for like the real life stuff, like what I get here from church is stuff that I'm going to go home and do. And I'm not sitting here like, you might say this, but I know at home you're doing X, Y, and Z. It's like really like putting it to the test and really getting it done. And for me as a grown adult, where it's like you could be over here, you could be there. When I'm going, it's like, this is where I want to be because I know it's real and the people are real as well, and that's something that like in today's world, again, like as I go through social media and see so many people living different ways, it's like I want nothing more than to be around real people. And that's what I see at like Excel and with my family. So
what about you, Gavin? Even though you sit in the back.
With his buddies.
I'd say it's the accountability aspect. Just we all sit under the same word and we all mostly stay in the same house. Like we all hear the same thing. So it's easy to check each other on. Like if you're stepping in the wrong area, somebody else in the household is going to tell you. And like it's like that's within their power. So it keeps everybody accountable sitting under the same word and just making sure we all hear the same thing. So that's a big point for me.
Now give us a parenting tip, because I'm sure some people are watching and you hear those horror stories. You guys have 5 kids, 2 boys, 3 girls. And you hear those horror stories of like the one sheep that got away. And you guys don't have that story. Now, obviously, there's always challenges with parenting. Uh-oh, Gavin's scratching his head. Maybe there's a story. Gavin, do you have something to tell us here on live TV? Okay, we'll save that for another interview. But give us some parenting tips. I mean, that's success at its best.
Honestly, it's exactly what they said, letting them have their space. I trust that we're in the same circles, we're in the same house, and as my wife would always say, and I don't always get it correct, but it's like, when we bake these cakes, they're made of the same materials. But then how they choose to decorate is on them. But if you cut them open, it should be the same. And so that's the idea of ingraining in them, it's Proverbs 22:6, train up a child. So they've been trained, they've been instructed, and a lot of times you don't realize that means every area. Teach them what to do, how to do it, go out there. I mean, I still have not taught these two how to go out to the car and check the oil, look at the batteries, but I need to. And so that's on me. And so it's things like that we actually have to do. So a parenting tip would be walk them through those processes. Don't tell them what to do, walk them through it and be there with them while they're learning it, and then step back and let them go through it themselves without interrupting, but also coaching and letting them do their mistakes at times. But you don't want it to be, I'm not saying go out and run out and fly down the road to get a ticket or whatever and then have an altercation with the police to learn something. No, it's more or less, hey, when we're riding, Gavin had an issue one night. He was at helping I guess a guy that he met, helping him out at the gas station. And I'm like, where are you? And I think it's what, like almost 10, 11 at night?
No, that's like 12.
No, it's 12. And the lights in the gas station are off. And they're standing there, and I'm thinking, where are you at? And so I asked him what, and then it was like, okay, out the bed, I'm going to get them. And so I go over there to help them, and I see where they are. And I'm like, okay, this is not a good place to be. Not African-American and Hispanic looking at a car at the gas station, lights off in the gas station. There's all kind of things that can happen. So as I'm thinking of this, I'm talking to him and letting him know what the scene is, and that just builds him up to understand, okay, ever in this place again, now I can understand, hey, buddy, I would love to help you. Let's move this car somewhere else to more light so that we can get things done. And if we can't get it done within 15 minutes, let's move on. Let's do something else because this is just not a good area. And so those are the things that we walk them through.
How has being home during COVID-19 kind of changed you all's relationship with your parents, your sisters, and each other?
I think for me personally, it has made me have to be, it's required a lot more conversations for me personally. And with that, I just think that, like, again, going back to the best parenting tips, the conversations have been some of the best things ever. Like, whenever I know, like, okay, my parents do not know everything, I do not know everything, but we're walking through this together, and there's that humility that's being brought to the table of, like, yes, they're in charge, I'm in their house, but also, like, let's talk this one out. Let's realistically talk this all out, because there's some things I feel like in families, like, oh, we got safety cones around this topic, where, like, those are bright orange mental safety cones. So we always see them in the back of our minds, but we don't ever touch them. And I feel like those can sometimes be barriers to actually, like, having real quality relationship and conversation that, again, builds respect on both sides and fosters a better environment for everyone. So I think it's been some tough conversations that have had to be had. Like, I talked to my mom a few times, and she's like, I know you're used to being in college when you're out till 3 a.m. Give me a text, shoot me a text. Let me know if you know when you're gonna be back. Let me know, give me at least an estimate of where you are, where you're going. Which for me, I'm like, I'm grown, I don't have to do that. Like, I'm just back here because I have to be. If I, wouldn't, then I'd be homeless, But having those conversations and going like, all right, yes, Mom, I'll be back at this time tonight. And then being out with my friends, be like, yeah, I'm grown, but I want to honor that, Like, I could just stay out and be like, she's worrying, but she doesn't need to worry, whatever. But doing the extra work to be like, all right, we talked about it. She heard me. I heard her. let me just honor that and do a little bit of extra work that I wouldn't normally feel like I needed to do, but I'm gonna do it because like I respect her, you know?
Right.
So I feel like the real conversations foster more respect, and in turn, you get a little bit more done, and it's easier, in my opinion, to live together. Still sometimes when it's like, I need my own space, but for the most part, it makes it a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah. What about you, Gavin? Because you've gone from being with teammates all day and having strenuous workouts and schedules. Now you're home chilling. Hopefully not eating too many Cheetos.
I would piggyback off what he said, the conversations, just being able to grow up, because in the house, you kind of just follow what you're told because that's what you're told. But once you get out of that house, then that's when you're really tested in what you believe. And so being able to go out and have my own experiences and and learn from those, and then come back and be able to share them and like compare and contrast them with my older brother, older sister, and my parents, it's like something I really value, just off the aspect that they're helping me learn and grow just by hearing other perspectives. And another takeaway I would say is just the rest and relaxation. Just from, like you said, strenuous workouts, being around teammates all the time, like and being at the school I'm at, it's stressful, like really, really stressful. And just being able to get that time with your family is like, you value every second of it, just because you know that's not something you're going to be afforded. Like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for me to be home for 3-4 months and spend that time with my family. Like, that's probably never going to happen for the next 3 years, maybe even longer. So just optimizing like the time that I have and just making sure it's as effective and as like, just as it just helps me like grow as a person again. And just so that whenever I go back, it's like just you're recharged. It's like recharging your batteries.
Awesome. What's been the best thing about having them back?
Having them back.
Yeah.
Having them back. It's like old times again. It's the house is full, and you know you gotta.
But they have bigger appetites.
Yeah, I was just about to say you gotta feed them. You gotta feed them. But having them back and seeing their faces, it is the greatest. And like Gavin said, I think we've taken up fishing. We may even get Elle out fishing. But it's you know, I'll look around like Elle. I'll see Elle. He doesn't say it, but in the morning he's up and he's doing his live streams at night late, but then he's doing his voiceovers in the morning, and it's like screaming in the room. He's just going off, screaming in the room, and you're like, what the heck? What's going on? And then you go, that's good. That's real good. And then my two younger girls, they're up and they're out working out with my oldest daughter, and you know it's just a lot of action and movement. And for someone who was getting close to being an empty nester, it just brings memories back, and so it's fun. It's like you're getting to relive it where I missed it before. I get to relive it. So that's just having them home has been great.
So let's talk about where you guys are at right now. So Lonnie III, you're currently training for the Olympics.
Yep.
Yeah. So talk about that. How's that been? That's exciting.
It is exciting. Track and field and athletics has always been something I've like kind of done, and I started it because I'm like, if I do track and field, I can eat whatever I want, whenever I want, So that's kind of how I signed up for the program, and now it's been 6-8 years maybe, and I'm like, I got to this point to where I got on a really good team that's like, hey, you have the potential to show up on the Olympic stage, with your skills. But you're going to have to dedicate a year to it after college, which was last year. And then with everything happening with COVID, it got bumped out to another year. So now I'm sitting here like, all right, I do love social media. I love competing, and I love being on a quality team. So it's like, how do I mix the two? And now I'm in this space where like, I got my 2 degrees, and I'm not doing anything with them, anything like directly related. Instead, I'm doing social media while training for the Olympics and trying to figure out how to make those two mix. And it's a weird space. It comes with a lot of responsibility, it'd be a lot of competition, a lot of pressure. But like I said at the beginning, it's really cool to be able to lead so many spaces, And plus competing and being able to eat whatever you want is just,
I I feel like I hear some of my fellow track athletes cringing because I do not remember being able to eat whatever
I don't know
wanted.
if I'm supposed to, but when you do 10 different events, it's like the coach is like, get the calories. And I'm like, okay, Golden
French
Corral,
fries,
here I come.
Pizza. Yeah. Oh yeah. That now that you say that, that was the most
Spot.
The place we ate all the time, Golden Corral, because you just have at everything. What about you, Gavin? You're heading into your sophomore year. What are you looking forward to the most, being a Navy football player?
I'm looking forward to getting back to football.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Last time I was doing anything football related with the team was before spring break in March. So I'm really looking forward to getting back on the field again, especially with the position change from going from running back to linebacker. Like, I was originally trying to get recruited as a linebacker in high school, but they're like, no, we want you to play running back. And now I'm back to where hopefully I'm supposed to be. So getting
Your
it.
brother's clapping. He thinks so.
We'll see.
God has a way to work
It's where you
himself
want to
out,
be,
young
so, you
man.
know.
Yeah.
Have you been watching any of Dad's old film?
I haven't. I did when I was at school. I would go on YouTube and, like, I wouldn't look up his film, but I would just look up games that I knew that he played in just to, like, watch and just be like, wow, because I never got to watch it. Like, I was too young to really even see anything or remember anything.
Mm-hmm.
So just being able to see it was like, wow, like that's where I want to be. Like, that's what I'm shooting for.
So what's your number one goal of getting ready for that position change? Have you talked to Dad about what that may take?
I think it's just the intellectual part about it,
Okay.
because just once you're able, for me personally, once I'm able to know exactly like the ins and outs of what I'm supposed to be doing and how I'm supposed to be reacting, it's really easy to make your body go along with it, because all it's doing is following your mind, and if your mind's right, your body's just gonna click, click, click.
Well, listen, I'll say this. We'll be back in a year to see, because if your dad is anything like my dad, having a son play football, he is going to tell you for sure if you're getting it right or not. And Mr. Marts, you've kind of embarked upon a new journey. Tell us about
Yes,
that.
we're doing Level the Playing Field Leadership Academy.
Okay.
It's we're gonna actually grab a cohort of 12 boys, middle school age. We figured out that that's where we want to grow and they're developing, and we're gonna get that started in 2021. But it's about, like I said, leadership, making sure they have all the tools that they need so that if ever there comes a time your career ends before necessary, or you thought it would, you have something in your hand. It's it always goes back to I think it's Exodus 4:2. You know, Moses standing at the Red Sea, and God said, "What do you have in your hand?" And so, at that decision time, what do you have in your hand? And we want to put as many tools in their hands as possible so that they never feel like they're out of options.
How did this get started? What brought it
This
about?
actually going through the levels of football, going through high school, going through college and the pros. You see that once they get to the pros, they're grown men. You can't change their minds at that point. College, you know, once they know that they're going to go and they're going to do it, you can't change their mind. High school has started to become that scene where you can't change their minds. So we're going to start at middle schoolers and try to change their minds and develop something in them, character and positive role models that, you know, not all athletes are bad, but what we want to do is we want to make sure that they don't feel like they're trapped, because I think that's when they have the, I guess, misguided decisions that they make. And so we want to give them just our little part, giving back.
Awesome. That sounds exciting. We'll definitely be following you. So let's wrap this thing up. Lonnie, in your words, tell me what is just the best thing about fatherhood when you look at your dad?
I think it's awesome, and I'm really fortunate to have an example and like someone who's been there, kind of done that in so many spaces, and as well as somebody who's kind and has the character, and then like loves me and is interested in what I'm doing. So like those right there are the biggest things that I think of and go to sleep at night like, I'm okay, we're good, you know? So those are the things that really get me, like, make me feel settled and like proud to have you as my dad, you know?
What about you, Gavin?
I would say versatility. Just being able to operate in so many different spaces and not be like one-sided whenever it comes to handling things, because you can't handle everything the same way. Like, he can't handle me the same way he handles him. And like being able to know that and understand that, like that's one thing that I've been able to appreciate, just because we're all different, definitely. and he's been handling it all differently, and being able to manage all of that on just on top of having to deal with my mom. So
Shout out
yeah.
to mom. He's gonna get it. Okay. Leave it to the middle child. And 3 sisters. I mean, raising 3 girls is different. When you look at your 2 sons, most thing you're proud of about them?
That they are different, and that I did not pressure them, and I thought that I was told you had to raise them this way, and I didn't have to raise them that way, and so they are unique and individuals, and I love hanging out with them because they teach me all the time how to be a little bit more caring and understanding. So they're doing great. They're doing great.
Awesome. It's exciting. I'm sure we will have you guys back. You have 2 very well-spoken men to your right.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I'm super impressed. They made this easy for me. Well, him, social media influence over there, I knew he was going to be good. But Gavin, I'm so proud of you. This has been great. How do people follow you guys on social media?
My social media is Lonnie IIV, which is like Lonnie the Third, but Lonnie the Third was taken on some platforms, so it's just the IIV is supposed to still be 3, but it's like bad Roman math. So just LONNIE IIV on literally any social media channel. Yeah.
Everything. And TikTok. You got over
Yeah.
1 million followers. So
Very
what
fun.
about you, Gavin?
I'm not as big a social media presence as Hollywood right here. So I mean, my Instagram is just 3SZN_, and I need to change it because I don't even wear number 3 anymore. This was from high school, but
Okay, so
Yes.
we'll get
figure
you
it
to
out.
change that. But we're expecting to see more from you on social media because of the leadership role you're stepping up to when you go back to school, right?
yes.
Can I hold you to that?
Yeah.
Okay, I will. And how do they follow you if they want to get in touch with you as far as the leveling up and everything else you're
It's contact at Level the Playing Field,
doing?
LA, and
Okay.
LA is for Leadership Academy.
Okay.
You can email me, and I'll answer your questions, whatever you need to know. We would love to have you obviously be a part, donors and everybody else.
Awesome. Sounds good. So we'll make sure we put all of that information on our platform as well. Guys, thank you so much. I'm
Yeah,
glad
thank you.
we
Thanks for
got a
having us,
hold of
Sarah.
you before you get out of here and go on and continue to do great things. Gavin will be looking for you to do some great things, and I'm sure, Lonnie, you've just added some more social media followers to your platform. I heard
Well,
you're
welcome.
a comedian, so I want to take a look at that myself. So I heard there's people who've been commenting on how funny you guys have been. So apparently it runs in the Marts family. You guys, thank you so much for joining us here on Get in the Game. I'm your host, Satara J. You can follow us on social media. Head over to our YouTube page, Get in the Game with Satara J. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe 904 Live Network and 904live.com. Also on Facebook as well. You can follow me personally on social media. I don't have TikTok and all of that stuff. Maybe I'll get Lonnie the Third to show me how to hook that up.
We'll get you set up.
But I am on Facebook, Satara Bunch with an E, and on Instagram and Twitter at Bunch of Legs, LEGZZ, and that comes from my track days.
Hey,
We'll have that
that's great.
conversation
That's good.
one day. Listen, if
good.
you guys know anyone who would like to be a proud sponsor or partner with Get in the Game, have them contact us at getinthegame@gmail.com and follow us for the next couple weeks because we will continue to honor fathers to commemorate Father's Day, and happy Father's Day to you as
Thank you.
well.
Father's Day.
Yeah, go ahead, tell them. Happy
Father's Day.
Father's Day. Happy Father's
Thank you.
Day.
Don't
What
ask
do you
for
guys
anything
get
on
for
Father's
Father's
Day.
Day? Oh, gosh. Just take them fishing.
Yeah,
All right, so
right.
we're going to close out now, guys. Thank you so much. You guys have a great evening. Be safe, and we'll see you here next week. Same time, same place. Have a good night.